All right. Good afternoon and welcome to the NASPA Region 3 HBCU webinar series. And I am your host, Dr. Kellie Dixon, also known as Dr. K. And today's topic, we are focusing on HBCU enrollment during COVID-19. And I'm excited to be here with three colleagues who are serving at different institutions in the capacity of enrollment management. And so I'm going to take the time to introduce them one by one. Prior to introducing them, I want to honor the legacy and the history and the foundation of our historically Black colleges and universities in this nation since 1837, when the first HBCU was founded in Pennsylvania, Cheyney University. All right, and our first guest is Dr. Emmanuel Lalande, who is a native of Brooklyn, New York, and is the Vice President for Enrollment Management and Student Services at Benedict College in Columbia, South Carolina. Prior to his arrival at Benedict College experienced years of downward trends in enrollment and poor retention. Since his arrival, Benedict has eliminated long-standing open enrollment, lowered tuition, created a strategic and dedicated enrollment management division, and increased first-year student support. Through his leadership, applications increased by 25% and new student enrollment by 33% prior to COVID-19. Benedict welcomed over 850 new students in fall 2019, the largest class in 6 years. He has also increased international student enrollment by 75%. Benedict College also transformed into a fiscally stable institution despite lower tuition. In his 16-year career in higher education, he has served in various roles. Dr. Lalande has raised approximately $4 million in grants and private donations during the span of his career. He has launched a range of new initiatives, including living learning communities for honor students in STEM, minority male initiatives, and other projects focused on creating a more inclusive campus. He holds a bachelor's degree in political science from Delaware State University in Dover, Delaware, as well as a master's degree in educational leadership, also from Delaware State University. He earned a doctorate of education degree with a concentration in organizational leadership at Nova Southeastern University in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So welcome, Dr. Lalande.
Thank you. It's Dr. Dixon, NASPA Region 3, and my wonderful colleagues, Ms. Powers and Dr. Talley.
Awesome. Next, we have Ms. Jacque Powers. Jacque, with over 10 years of experience in higher education, Powers serves as an Associate Vice Provost of Enrollment Management, a Division of Academic Affairs at North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University. As the Chief Enrollment Officer, Powers is responsible for developing a comprehensive enrollment management plan that fosters an integrative recruitment and admission effort consistent with the university's strategic goals and direction. This position has direct managerial responsibility and oversight for the offices of admissions, financial aid, the registrar, transfer articulation, and orientation and new student programs. Prior to leading enrollment management, Powers served as Director of Orientation and New Student Programs, where she led a comprehensive first-year experience that included an award-winning and regionally recognized orientation program. Jacque began her career as the Manager of College Marketing at Sony Music Entertainment, where she managed a team of 20 college marketing representatives across the country. Powers holds a bachelor's degree in speech communication from North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University and a master's degree in leadership development from Emory University. She is currently a doctoral student at Emory pursuing interdisciplinary studies with a focus on leadership and counseling. And I just want to brag really quick that Jacque is one of my colleagues here in Aggie Land, and I can speak to the work that she's done, not only in enrollment management since her hiring, but also in new student programs. Welcome, Jacque.
Thank you so much, Dr. K. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining, and I look forward to the conversation. I think it's going to be very powerful.
Awesome. And last and certainly not least, we have Dr. Braque Talley, who is a native of Starkville, Mississippi. Dr. Talley's career includes a distinguished professional career as a higher education administrator and educator. Dr. Talley currently serves as the Vice Chancellor of Enrollment Management and Student Success at the University of Arkansas, Pine Bluff. While at UAPB, he has received nationwide notoriety for redeveloping their branding, marketing, and student engagement campaigns, which has garnered one of the more significant enrollment turnarounds in the midst of COVID-19. Prior to joining, he served his alma mater, Russ College, as Vice President of Enrollment Management. While in this capacity, he helped lead the college in achieving increases in overall student enrollment and retention. His teams have also received more than $1 million in grants and other gifts to undergrad student support initiatives. He is responsible for enrolling the 2 largest first-year classes in the college's 154-year history. Previously, he served as the Director of Marketing and Recruitment at Alabama A&M University. Since 2008, Talley has served as an ambassador to the Black College Fund. Dr. Talley has written a number of scholarly papers and has published research on higher education sustainability, student motivation, and student engagement. He is also the author of the book Fame, The Ultimate Guide for Young Professionals. Talley graduated cum laude from Russ College with a Bachelor's of Arts in English. During his undergraduate matriculation, Talley was a member of the E.A. Smith Honor Society, Alpha Kappa Mu National Honor Society, and he was the president of the Student Government Association. He attended Alabama A&M University, where he earned the Master's of Urban and Regional Planning with a concentration in community development. He earned the Doctorate of Philosophy from Jackson State University in Higher Education. Welcome, welcome, Dr. Talley.
Dr. Dixon, thank you so much for the opportunity. To my colleagues, Mrs. Powers and Dr. Lalande, it's great to be with you all. Excited about this powerful conversation today.
Awesome. So let's get right into it with the first question being, what is enrollment management?
That's a good question. Well, but first, before we answer that, I would be remiss if I didn't say my thoughts and prayers are with our HBCU family, St. Augustine University. They suffered a great loss in Dr. McPhail and his family due to this horrific virus, COVID-19. But so my thoughts and prayers are with his family.
Yes, thank you.
I wanted to say that. But when you think about enrollment management, I believe, is a data-driven, coordinated response, college and university response to the challenges and opportunities in finding the right student to recruit, retain, persist, and graduate. That's how I would define enrollment management.
Okay, thank you.
And I agree, and I'll add on to that. I was thinking about that as I stepped into the office today because I am here. And Dr. K, I see you are there as well as the rest of my colleagues. So yeah, we're just gonna keep each other lifted on that one. Oh, but enrollment management is everything, and because it's everything, it's everybody. So down to the facilities and how your campuses look, down to the faculty and how they respond to students and how they instruct the students and assist students with learning, down to the student engagement piece. And so with enrollment management, it's not just us as enrollment management officers, it's sort of a shared responsibility across the campus because it impacts everything.
Right.
That was similar to what I was thinking. I guess the short answer is I was thinking everybody's job, and that was going to be the answer to the question for me, because everybody has a contribution to enrollment management, from the president down to the facility staff. We all contribute to it, and we all have one job, and that's to try to find the right fit students for that institution, to support those students throughout the graduation, and as they become alums and conquer the world, we need to amplify and market those students to the world, let them know that our product is still great, that our product still has deliverables.
So when we think about enrollment management, and I understand this whole consensus that it is everybody's job, But in particular to your role and your particular titles, you all have kind of different titles. What does enrollment management look like for you, I'll say, on a typical day-to-day basis? Like, who are you supervising? What does that whole space look like?
I think the professional answer is it's everybody's job until there's a decline, and then it's like, oh man, this guy is not doing well. But for us at Benedict College, that encompass. I also have upper bound, so trio programs. We have, of course, housing, financial aid, the traditional admissions and recruitment, international programs here at Benedict College.
Awesome.
So I think go ahead, Dr. Talley.
Yeah, so at UAPB, we have admissions and recruitment where you, I guess, a little different as our admissions and recruitment offices are separate here. But we have admissions, recruitment, financial aid, default management, student collections. We have a student success center, tutoring, and supplemental instruction that falls under our purview and umbrella. And then we have a summer bridge program, which is our Alliance program. We use that as a way to help with equity on our campus to help some of our students prepare for the fall.
Awesome.
Yeah, and our setup at North Carolina A&T is very similar with undergraduate admissions. You heard a few of my areas in the bio that Dr. Dixon read. But honestly, I liken it to we're the gas in the car. So we hold the services that sort of help the university go. Right now we're preparing for the spring semester. And so that means looking at students with balances on the financial aid and the treasurer's office side, making sure their balances are cleared so the registrar's office can remove the hold so students can register for courses for the spring semester. It's gearing up our orientation for the spring and however we're going to make that experience better than the summer was because we had a quick pivot with COVID.
Right.
Undergraduate admissions is sort of cyclical here because as soon as one cycle ends, it's like we're starting another cycle. So we are really the gas that helps the university propel forward.
I like that, the gas. Okay. So moving on to our next question. What is the HBCU experience? And then how has COVID changed this experience? Because we always hear, you know, this whole HBCU experience. And I'm always quick to say I did not attend an HBCU, so I don't have the student HBCU experience. I have the staff. But can you kind of talk about the HBCU experience for students at your particular institution?
Yeah, for us, and I'm sure similar to my colleagues as well, for us, the HBCU experience is being intentional about serving our students, putting our students first, letting our students know that we care about them, that we love them. You know, now there's a lot of talk about wraparound services and how many touch points you have on a student once they get there. We've been doing that since since our founding at our institutions. But now other institutions are putting a fancy name on them. We just entitled them. But we've been doing those things. We've been calling your mama when you miss class since the beginning of our since our institutions were founded. And so I think those things are the HBCU experience. Letting students know that they're cared for, that they're loved. And I think even in the midst of the pandemic, we're still doing those things. We're just doing them a little bit more uniquely. Now, the other side of it, of course, I think it's different when you don't have to have a Black student union on your campus. You have a student union that belongs to you. You don't have to have a Black gospel choir on campus. You have the gospel choir, the university's choir that belongs to you. So our students get a chance to feel, probably for the only time in their lives, what it feels like to be a majority, what it feels like to be the majority of the population. And I think that's why, HBCUs produce the majority of the medical doctors, the majority of federal judges and state judges and any other profession, because our students come out with a certain level of confidence that students from others, and Dr. Dixon, I know you didn't go to the HBCU, so I'm not talking about you.
I appreciate that.
But those who may not have attended HBCUs may not have that same level of confidence unless they have the wit and the stick-to-itiveness like Dr. Dixon does.
I appreciate you. You know I was going to come for you.
And if I had to say, just to piggyback on Dr. Talley's point, what has COVID-19 has done for HBCUs and the experience, I like to compare it to a boxer who broke his right arm, or his right hand or something like that. And then, he tries to repair that right hand. And at the same time, because it's still in a healing mode, we're working to make our left hand stronger, right? So I think COVID-19, the whole notion of it's always been this way, we can't move faster, we can't do this. COVID-19 said you either move or you won't be able to survive. So it's an opportunity for HBCUs to meet the students, continue to meet the students where they are, whether it's the social media space, whether it's our level of communication, our process, how do we make sure that students get the information that they need at home, online, or in person. We had some students on campus here at Benedict College. So for us, it allowed us to enhance the experience, maximize and capitalize on everyone's strength. We pride ourselves as HBCU as a family. So COVID allowed that to come out. Everyone had to work together. Everyone had to really, it was never this is your division, your responsibility. We had to really coalesce and really come together and start addressing this unpredictable virus that from March until August it was changing every day. So
right.
And I echo the thoughts of my colleagues, and because we are such a community just by nature, we are the village, it makes me think about how much care HBCUs, I think, across the board have put into COVID-19 on our campus, because we know the risk that the majority of our students, the risk categories that they fall in, our students, faculty, and staff. We've implemented several testing sites and several opportunities for testing. We're testing students when they come in, we're testing students when they go home. So I think that is just a prime example of the care and the culture of care at HBCUs. I think another interesting space when we're talking about the HBCU experiences, yes, I feel like people that work at HBCUs feel like we've been doing this all along, but now we're sort of navigating how we tell that story, because it's been either not told or told by others who aren't necessarily qualified. And so at North Carolina A&T, we're a STEM institution, and so we are competing alongside majority peers. Right. And sometimes we're out competing our majority peers. So it's sort of existing in two different spaces at the same time, and having to be graceful, of course, with how society is set up right now. Yeah. But how are you graceful in that, and how do you tell that story that people are not familiar with? So that's my soapbox. I'm hopping off now.
and I want to piggyback on that. I think HBCUs also is the best representation of what the United States should have been, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, HBCUs were created for African Americans, Black folks. However, you couldn't go to any HBCU and we're open to all, and we have a welcoming environment for all. And I can't say that for our majority institutions, where their environment and culture is set up for everyone, right? And I think HBCUs are best examples of what diversity means, and how do you create a culture and an environment that celebrates diversity, I believe.
And thank you for adding that, because as someone who did go to a PWI, and I think about my experiences there, and then, of course, as a student, but then seeing the experiences the students have on HBCUs, it's very different. It is welcoming, at the PWI, for me, I had to go find a space. At a HBCU, for the most part, I don't have to find a space. These students don't have to necessarily find a space. It's more so, in my opinion, now it's about this whole intersecting identity, especially amongst Black students. But even those students that are not identified as Black that are on our campuses at HBCU still feel welcome. And so thank you for adding that comment. All right, so let me just first and foremost say, I know it's homecoming season for HBCUs, and this is a tough time for those alum. However, I want you to kind of talk about, what does an HBCU homecoming mean as it relates to retention?
It's everything, it adds to the experience. It's the football game or whatever sports that is the highlight for that homecoming. It's the tailgating. It's the Greek life on the campus. It is the band. You can't have a homecoming without the band. And I think it's just a time for alums from all over to really come to one place that they find in common, right? I met my wife at my HBCU, Delaware State University, and every time I go to homecoming, it just go onto the campus and see all the great things that's been happening there. It just brings back all those memories. So it's everything. And I think, yes, homecoming traditionally is for alums, but that whole experience for a freshman onto a senior, it really does help to drive home the whole reason on why they came here. They can see from the Divine Nine to an established alum who is doing well for themselves. They can see that in that whole weekend. I think it's just a beautiful thing. At Benedict College, we had to do it a little different, a virtual plus some in-person for our on-campus students. And, we have a chief of staff who put together this COVID-19 policy. Our head nurse here, Nurse New, who also enforced those policies. So we felt comfortable in trying to do some in-person homecoming events, and it worked out. We had some virtual, of course, a lot of virtual events, but it worked out. So we gave our new students a taste of what that HBCU experience is all about. And for us, we believe it's going to pay off for spring semester, as spring is quickly approaching, as Ms. Powers mentioned.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the beautiful things about it for our students is similar to what my colleague just shared. They get a chance to see alums who have professional careers be able to let their hair down, but still go back to their professional career as well. Mm-hmm. And I think that oftentimes many of our students may be first-generation college students. Mm-hmm. So identifying what a Black professional looks like may be a little different. And I don't get a chance to see what that looks like outside of the work arena. But during homecoming, I do. So I get a chance to see that balance. I get a chance to see you at the alumni meeting, but then I get a chance to see you at the step show. I get a chance to see you at the step show, but then I also get a chance to see you at the president's fundraiser the next morning, the breakfast. So I think that's the thing that adds to the retention side of it. Then our student gets a chance to see that, hey, we're not all crazy here when we tell you these are the certain things that you need to do in order to get to this stage in life. Mm-hmm. Now you get a chance to see what the finished product looks like, what one of our alums looks like. So you can, you can be motivated, you can hang on. And then the fun activities, I think that adds to it as well. I think students spend only about 15 to 17% of their time inside the classroom. Mm-hmm. So our time outside of the classroom has to be important. And we have to find alternative ways of educating and we found them, of educating our students without throwing a book directly in front of them. And I think those are some of the things that happen at HBCU homecomings. And then it's a time to celebrate. to celebrate each other. Oftentimes it comes in between midterms and finals for our students. So they get a chance to celebrate still being in college and the accomplishments of being there. And it's fun and it's a good time. It's a good time and it's a good thing.
And I'll add two pieces to that. One, homecoming is absolutely a culture.
Yeah.
And so here at A&T, it's homecoming this week. I dressed as if I was Thursday on the yard because I'm an alum of A&T. But I attended our honors convocation and it was virtual. I attended that this morning. And even in the virtual space, I could sense the pride and the feeling of culture and even the feeling of community, because once the program sort of went to closing remarks, they opened the chat. And I saw my classmates from way back when, and so we're connecting virtually. So that was a really good feeling this morning. It's not going to be the same, but nonetheless, it's really great to reconnect. But then on the retention piece, I also think homecoming is an excellent showcase of the resiliency in our students. So for students to have this wonderful weekend, and we know what they're out doing, hanging out, having a good time and celebrating, but being back in the classroom and into the books sometimes that next Monday, I think that's a testament of retention as well. It's like we work, yeah, we might party hard, yeah, but at the end of the day, we know what the business is about and we're gonna accomplish what we came to do.
Right. So I like the fact that how you kind of talk about, all of you kind of in a consensus talk about this whole idea of sense of belonging, and then also seeing the final product. Because a lot of times students come to our campuses and, you know, they come for different reasons. Most maybe because my mom or daddy want me to come, whatever. But when you are able to see someone who went through the trenches to come back, they professional, have a job, like you said, let their hair down, still show the pride of their institution. I have seen firsthand working at A&T and in housing, how that's impacted students to say, hey, I'm gonna stay a little longer. I wanna be a part of this. I wanna be able to come back to homecoming as a graduate and do X, Y, and Z. And so thank you for sharing that, because a lot of times you may see those who are on the outside see HBCU homecoming and think something totally different. But I think it speaks to the nature of who we are and who we continue to be when we say we can still get the work done and have fun. And all of that's part of this enrollment management, retention, and persistence. All right, so we talked a little bit earlier in one of your responses, but can you kind of talk more about and make it more particular about your institution? Because I recognize that they're different in different spaces, private, public. What does diversity look like at your institution? And then how does that play a role in your recruitment of students as well as staff?
I think diversity plays a huge role in it. I think it goes to the future of HBCUs and enrollment and making sure that we are really addressing, you know, prior to the pandemic, they talked about this enrollment cliff, and that by 2025 that there would be this drop in enrollment, and you can see high school graduation populations for African American communities are going down and other areas are going up. So for us at Benedict College, we increased our international population by 78%. That includes Hispanics as well as, you know, for us, the Caribbean population was important as well. My first hire here was a Hispanic recruiter, someone with a Hispanic background. We have changed our admissions brochure to include Spanish as well. So for us, you know, how do we begin to recruit students that don't look like us, right? And make sure that they feel welcomed as well. Again, in this environment. So that was important to me. I think that's going to be the future as we continue to navigate through this new norm. The cliff might be now, right? Because of COVID-19. So we want to attract as many students as possible across a different and broad spectrum, because now the playing field is leveled a little bit, right? Everyone is waiving their ACTs and SATs, or test optional, however you want to call it. And everyone is now, they're not May 1st deadlines for some are no more. So, which for HBCUs, some HBCUs, it was, we counted on that. We counted on those students, those late, last minute choices for us is important. So being diversified, our demographics, our student demographics, and making sure that our recruitment staff is represented as well is important. We have a few DACA students because Delaware State has a Achieve the Dream program. They have about 150 DACA students, and when I was talking to some of them, those students were coming from the North Carolina, South Carolina area. So I said, there has to be a population here, and unbeknownst to me, but fortunate, we found some of that population here in South Carolina, in a red state. I get it, but it was important for me to make sure that we represent what HBCUs truly stand for, which is providing the education for all.
Awesome.
And at North Carolina A&T, we have an associate director of transfer and diversity admission. So much like at Benedict, we put our efforts on the front end, but we also are moving into more of a collaborative space with areas like student affairs, because diversity, I think a lot of times when we say the word diversity, we automatically think about, race and ethnicity, but we're looking at things like first gen. Kellie, you're doing some amazing things on our campus with colleagues, looking at first gen students and how do we build the space in the community for them. Our campus organizations are amazing, and they are such a great support when it comes to recruitment for us, because students and families need to see themselves on campus. So we have a very strong Saudi population. We have a very strong Asian population, and all these groups on campus, they really play a role. So anytime we're having admissions events, anytime we're doing things with the department, we try to make sure it's diversified in that way. Not only that, in North Carolina, we have a really huge focus on rural student enrollment. And so we're looking at what the barriers are there in terms of access and, financial aid opportunities. So there are a lot of things that come with the word diversity, but we're certainly working together as a university to put our best foot forward.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think diversity is important. I think it's more, I think when we look at diversity, we have to look at where our students are from, domestically and internationally. We have to look at their experiences, socioeconomic backgrounds. All of those things go into the diversity melting pot, so to speak. And I think the beautiful thing about it is it adds to the classroom experience. Mm-hmm. So being a Mississippian, things that I may have experienced are totally different if I had grown up in North Carolina or in Delaware. Mm-hmm. So all three of us can talk about some of the same things, but from a different experience, even though all three of us identify, I think I'm looking at through Zoom, identify as African-American. but all three of us have different experiences. But here at UAPB is very important for us as well. About 91% of our students identify as Black or African-American. We have about 3 or 4% of our students who are Caucasian students. Then we have a few Hispanic students and other students who identify as 2 or more races. Right. But I will admittedly say that much of our recruitment of other students have come through our athletic programs, has come through our ROTC program. That hasn't been the big push from our recruitment office, because we've kind of relied heavily on historical enrollment, where we traditionally get the biggest bang for our buck. Right. Now, we have a marketing firm that has done a really good job of telling the story, telling the story of all of our students, telling the story of students regardless of their background and their ethnicity. And we're going to continue to try to do those things. And one of the things that we're working on now is trying to attract more transfer students, which again is a diverse population. So we have a transfer coordinator who is Caucasian, and being in Arkansas, that's going to help us out a lot. Just being fully transparent. We have student success coaches, because those student success coaches are going to be critical in helping to engage those students while they're here. It's one thing to get them here, but it's another thing to engage them and to support them through graduation.
Exactly.
So those things as well. And I think that if we are to continue to grow, and if we are going to continue to be here as institutions, then we are going to have to be a little bit more diverse and the students that we attract to our institutions. But I think the other thing, and I think Emmanuel, he alluded to this earlier as well, our institutions are just historically Black, not exclusively Black. So we've always been open to other students of other ethnicities, and so now that things are shifting, we're losing some of our students, but I think we're going to have to become more competitive in that space, so that we can let students of other backgrounds know that, hey, we've wanted you all the time.
Right.
We've never excluded you from coming here. We've always wanted you. Mm-hmm. This is a place that supports you, and I'll end with this. It's a difference when you go where you want it.
Come on.
I had two things, Dr. K, if I may.
Yes, yes.
We talked about students a lot, but I do believe a lot of our campuses on the faculty and staff side, we see a lot of diversity there. I know at A&T, our Human Resources Office has had an ongoing initiative hiring faculty of the future. Mm-hmm. So that looks much different than maybe it did, many years ago. But I also wonder, oh, never mind. This is a perfect segue. So I will hold that because I see the question on the screen.
Okay, let me ask a question. What are your
exciting question.
What are your thoughts on Black students at PWIs transferring to HBCUs in response to nationwide racism?
Well, listen. Let me say this. I take Dr. Talley's last comment and I say, students can, Black students, you can go where you're tolerated, or you can go where you're appreciated. And I believe HBCUs is a place, and I think I love what Deion Sanders and Chris Paul and all these other athletes are trying to do to really raise awareness for HBCUs, but we never went nowhere, right? It's easy for a predominantly white institution to put out a statement in response to racism that's been happening for ages, but does the culture, does the action, does everything else really speak to it? I like to say, HBCUs gives you an opportunity to really be yourself, right? We will have a lifetime to conform. Black folks do a lot of adjusting, right? In this world, do a lot to make sure that our counterparts feel comfortable while we feel uncomfortable because we have to put on this mask every day. But an HBCU and its environment allows you for at least for 4 years to really just be yourself, right? Before you go into a world where you have to deal with nationwide institutional racism that some folks believe don't exist. On that note, make sure everyone goes out and vote because that is definitely important. So I think it's great that everyone is waking up and saying, "Oh yeah, you know what? Let me go to HBCU." But we're here. We've been here. We've been here for a very long time. For you, by you.
And I was wondering, well, I'm preparing myself for the flip side of this question, and should we anticipate an enrollment increase in allies, people that don't necessarily look like us, but because of what's going on in society, will we see an increase in diversity there?
That's a great question.
Well, I tell you, reading this question, I feel like the man at church when they do altar call. Come on, come on, come on, come on. You know, the only thing I hate about this, and of course we need transfer students.
Right.
But the only thing I hate about it is I can't count you in my graduation rate. You know, because that's the other thing that people look at when they're choosing an institution. But not only do students and parents look at it, but foundations look at it when they're thinking about investing in an institution and who they're going to give money to as well. You know, I would love to have those students. And I think, you know, asking a student at 18 years old to make a decision on where they're going to go to college, stick with it, and the impact that college has on the rest of their life. It's a huge decision. So sometimes when you get to college, you say, man, maybe I chose an institution that wasn't the right fit for me. Maybe something in my life changed. Maybe this nationwide racism, you know, even though it's been here since Columbus sailed the ocean blue, but now that I'm just seeing it, now that I'm just noticing it, yeah, I do want to go to an HBCU now, and I think that's okay. I think that's okay, and I tell you, many of us have put funds to the side for transfer scholarships to students who decide, hey, I want to come back to, or I want to go to another institution.
Awesome.
And we really need to capitalize. We really need to capitalize on it. I saw it somewhere where I read that, I think it was a Chronicle on Higher Education, where community colleges are seeing a decrease in enrollment because they thought, you know, it was a surprise because they thought it would be an increase because students, because of COVID-19, would want to stay home, and they're not seeing that. So I think there's a opportunity for us to really capitalize on transfers.
And Jackie, you were saying something?
I was just going to say that question made me think about the episode of, I don't know if it was Cosby Show or A Different World, but it was whenever Denise came back from her first semester at Hillman. She was just woke.
Right. So you kind of hit on this when we talked about homecoming. So just wanted to ask the question to see if you wanted to add any more dialogue to this in terms of what impact does sports and the band have on enrollment at HBCUs?
Huge for us. It's huge.
Look,
go ahead, Dr.
I just want to add, at my school, everybody has a recruitment goal. Whether you coach football, baseball, soccer, golf, tennis, whether you the band, the choir, the debate team. Look, if we're all going to celebrate it, we all got to get out and get it.
Right.
And, you know, I don't have robust staffs like my colleagues here at A&T and Benedict. So all of us have to.
No. A&T, just A&T.
You know, I don't have the greatest homecoming on earth to be able to sell. So all of us have to contribute to attracting students to the school. So it's huge for us. But also, we see huge returns with retention rates of those students who participate in these programs as well. You have to engage those students. And I think that this may argue against the old adage of, you know, dumb jocks or dumb athletes, because one may argue that you have to maintain a certain GPA to participate in these extracurricular activities. I'll close with this. I played sports in high school. I remember my mom would tell me this, and I would tell my students this now, that these things are extracurricular activities. If there ain't no curricula, there ain't no extra. And I think we're telling our students as well, hey, take care of the curricula first, and then you can participate in the extra.
I like that.
Yeah. It is huge, and like Dr. Talley said, you know, every sport and the band has an enrollment goal. For us, we have a phenomenal football coach. This is his first year, and Coach Barry, a phenomenal band director, and H. Wade Johnson. And they are hitting the roads now. You know, here in South Carolina, we high school. There is still high school football. So all the coaches have been hitting the state hard to make sure that we continue to show the best of BC. So for us, it is huge, and we rely on sports and band heavily.
Awesome.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll say it's so amazing as I sit here and think about the question, because it gives us an opportunity anytime we compete, especially in championships, our applications skyrocket.
Mm-hmm.
They go through the roof. And normally, like, I'm thinking about Celebration Bowl would have been our most recent. And so that happens like the end of December. And so we walk back into this pile of admissions applications, which is such a wonderful challenge to have. But it serves us well because we also use those types of events as recruitment events where we get on the road, and that gives us an opportunity to touch folks from everywhere. So that's wonderful. But then tying it all back into that retention piece, student engagement, family engagement, when we were able to sit in stadiums and support our band members, support our athletes, it further encompassed the concept of community. So very important on our campus as well.
And then we're a private HBCU, right? So it becomes a free marketing opportunity for us. You know, our band participated in the Honda Battle of the Band alongside the big names, right? A&T and FAMU and all the brand that you heard of. But to have a 2,100 enrollment institution like Benedict College to be part of that top 8, for us, it's invaluable.
Mm-hmm. So as go ahead, Dr. Talley, I see you.
I'm sorry, I just want to get the last piece of that, because I'm not like my colleagues. I'll say that again. We didn't get an invitation to the Celebration Bowl. We didn't get an invitation to the Battle of the Bands. We're just out here getting there how we live.
Sometimes that's all you can do, right? Your time is coming.
But I want to add that, and I know we're talking about HBCUs here, but there's a study out there called the Saban Effect, and it talks about the University of Alabama and how their enrollment had gone down tremendously when Mike Shula was the head coach there. They weren't competing for national championships. They weren't competing for SEC championships. And I think maybe the enrollment got down to about 30,000, which is huge for one of our institutions. Mm-hmm. But now that Nick Saban is there, their enrollment is around 70,000. And he's only been the coach there 10 or 12 years, I guess. I don't know how long he's been the coach there. But the enrollment has gone up tremendously because of Nick Saban and what they've been doing around winning national championships. So it's so important because you get free advertisement, as my colleague said, and people want to be associated with winning programs, whether you can pick up the ball or not. People want to say, hey, I went to the school that won the Honda. I went to the school that won the Celebration Bowl, and I got to talk to my coaches and band directors so that we can be able to be in the conversation with my colleagues there on those fronts.
So as we're coming to an end, for this question, if you can kind of speak to maybe one or two strategies, give you about a minute each. But in your opinion, what's the future of enrollment at HBCUs? What are about 2 strategies that we need to be thinking about?
We need to be thinking about graduate programs and how do we continue to increase our efforts there. As my colleagues mentioned, transfer programs. But I got 2 things. My president likes to say, in this new era of COVID, if you're running, run faster, right? So that's important. But I saw a quote from Dr. Michael Sorrell from Paul Quinn, and he says, in this new environment, higher education institutions that are less in love with tradition and more in love with their students will be the ones that thrive. So how do we continue to embrace our students, meeting them where they are, and continue to highlight their achievements, I believe will be the opportunity for us to navigate through this new norm.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'd say focusing on online programs and innovation and access in terms of technology, because this is where we're going to be for a while. Much like HBCU, we've always been here. Technology has always been here. Online has always been here. So how do we maximize that opportunity to increase enrollment goals?
Yeah, just real quickly, I wanted to add that I think credentialing from an institution standpoint is going to be a big push with enrollment. Working with adult populations and those who just may need to get a stamp on their certificate or get a certificate to achieve a new level in their with their employer, which goes to my second step. I think that we have to have more conversations with corporations. I think we have to have conversations with corporations, asking them what's coming down the pipe. What skills do you need your future employees to have? And we need to go back and do an assessment to see if we're teaching those skills at our institutions. And if we're not, look back to the employer and say, maybe there's time for us to talk about a capital gift from you at our institution. So I think that's the future of enrollment.
And you know I'm always side with anything dealing with assessment, so I'm here for it.
There you go.
And so the last question, can you talk about the influence? We kind of talked about it throughout, but kind of want to bring it on home. What's the influence of branding on HBCU enrollment? So when you think about current students, alumni, customer service, what's that influence?
It's huge. I think branding tells your story.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's one thing for us to put out nice, fancy articles, but it's another thing for what people say about you. Mm-hmm. What stories do your alums tell? What stories do your students tell? When I go visit college campuses, I don't just like to talk to the SGA president. I want to talk to the student who's been cutting up in the financial aid office. Mm-hmm. Tell me about your experience. I want to talk to the student whose parents call the president's office every week. Tell me about your experience. That's how we get to the root of the issues on student retention and student assessment at our institutions.
And if for us, branding is huge. How do we measure the success of our students? Is so important. How do we improve our customer service? Is so important. We at Benedict College, prior to Dr. Artist's arrival, had a profile of students where it was a 2.67, 14 on the ACT, to now we have a 3.2, about an 18 on the ACT, and 70% retention this year. So for us, we believe in the brand. We believe in the best of BC and what that encompasses. For us, continue to tell our stories through our alums, through our current students, through our actions is going to help increase our enrollment.
Awesome.
I agree. And I mean, honestly, I think it takes a lot of soul work. We've rebranded at least twice since I've been at the institution, and it really took a shared vision across the board. It didn't come from just straight up at the top. Our chancellor literally got all stakeholders involved into what we are. And I think, especially in the state of North Carolina, when you're competing against 16 other institutions, like, what is your competitive advantage? And branding is what helps set you apart.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right, so now we're moving into Q&A. Are there any questions or thoughts from our guests to our panelists? I'm looking in the chat and I see, I'm not sure which if you're talking about the overall topic, Mrs. Tuma, or a certain question, but stated that it was a great topic and definitely could be a scholarly article submission or conference presentation. Thank you for that. Yeah. Are there any other questions or comments for our panelists? Are there any thoughts or things that we should consider from our enrollment management experts on the panel?
Dr. Dixon, while we're waiting on questions, I just wanted to take another opportunity to say thank you to you for facilitating this.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
This is one way we stay relevant by having conversations about what we're doing and those selling points that are taking place at our institution. So thank you so much.
No problem. It's my pleasure. I'm thankful that when I got the opportunity to do this, I had a bucket of people that I can call on and would respond readily and say yes. So thank you for accepting the invitation to be here.
Well, to be on a panel with the three rock stars here, man, I just feel honored. So thank you for including me in this panel. You're doing an awesome job.
Most definitely. And I don't see any questions coming in or any hand raises. So I am going to do something I don't normally like to do and assume that there are no questions or comments for our panelists. So I just want to thank all our guests for being here, for tuning in, and most importantly, I want to thank you all for your guidance, your wisdom, and enrollment management. As stated before by Jacque, it's the gas that gets the car running. And so thank you for all the tireless nights, all the hard conversations you have with people that don't understand what you do. But thank you so much for your wisdom and being a part of this webinar series.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. You all have a great afternoon.